I just want to talk about briefly. This point came up last meeting, last seminar, and we heard it for the last 4 years. Same thing. So I thought I'd maybe give a little bit of background to what is evidence-based medicine. Now if you look at it, a person who is normal, which is here, has none of those things what we call as risk factors. Blood pressure, diabetes, weight, whatever you want to call it. That's a whole list. And then the second step, you can have blood pressure all your life, but not affect the damage. Dr. Hiremath explained today that if you have a high blood pressure, particularly the systolic reading, you are damaging certain blood vessels, whether it's related to brain, or the eyes, the kidneys, and so that's what I'm talking about. So somebody can have blood pressure all his life or her life without organ damage. That's what we are interested in. No damage to the organs. So these are different names given. This is the normal. You have none of those. Then we say you have risk factors, and then the organ damage. What causes the risk factors in the first place? We already talked about here. Many times there are 5 factors. There are no 6, only 5. Is it in your genes that's causing diabetes or blood pressure? One of these. Is it your genes? Is it because you're a male? Is it because you're a female? Or is it because you're a South Asian, Caucasian, the ethnicity comes? Or is it because we are aging? The blood pressure goes up, as you heard today. Everybody after the age of 65 develops blood pressure as we get older. So we look at all those 4 reasons, then we come back to the last one, which is the most important, and he talked about it, is the lifestyle. So all these 5 contribute to these risk factors. Now risk factors over time lead to organ damage. So when you say treatment, and let's take yoga, or any treatment for that matter. So we say, I started yoga and I control my blood pressure, control my diabetes. But what was the organ? Did we reverse the damage already taken place? So we must be very clear what we are talking about. I'm doing yoga. Did I reverse the organ damage? I like to see the evidence. Did I reverse, lower the blood pressure, lower diabetes? Oh, over time the damage will not take place. That's fair to assume. With that in mind, now look at the paper. This paper, you may not be able to see it, but I'll explain. And this was the one sent to me electronically. This was absolutely wonderful. People come here, they challenge, they think about it, and come up with the papers or some evidence, and which I'm sharing with you. So this paper was published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology. It's a reputable journal. And what was this study designed? They took young, healthy, and the older people with heart disease, older people with heart disease, and young and healthy. What did they do? They did all kind of yoga, and then they found at the end that those who did yoga, they lost about 5 pounds of weight, the blood pressure was down by 5 millimeters, and the bad cholesterol was down by 12 points. Now, what does it mean? So they were acting their own control. That's what it is. Before I do anything, they measure everything. Then I do yoga for a certain length of time and do the same test. And that's what I mean by self-control. And that's what they did. Oops, sorry. And to me, that's very encouraging. But it still doesn't answer the previous point. Here, will it benefit my organs? And somebody told me today that there's a book that the clogged arteries were helped by yoga. I like to read it. I see the evidence, and then I'll give it to you next time. But for now, accept this paper that yoga does benefit these at least 3 points. And that's what we have been talking about. You talk about the stress. Now what is it? Physical activity, breathing and meditation. That was part of it. Then you talk about the stress. Now, the exercise, breathing exercise, all of these help insulin sensitivity, which is very important. And meditation quiets the nervous system and ease stress. That's the point that you brought it up. So yoga certainly brings your stress level down quite a bit. So these are the points that I'll take it from this study. The yoga is good for you, at least the risk factors are under control, are better. But the organ will be affected? I don't know the answer. So we look for evidence-based medicine. There are different levels of evidence, and I mentioned on the top, in the previous slide, that different levels of evidence. And I'm not the expert on this. There are people here sitting, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, or different categories. And maybe Dr. Hiramet or Dr. Raman from time to time tell us, what level are we looking for? Now, that was one point that came up. The second one, the last time, was to do with fat abdomen, belly. How do we reduce it? And Dr. Vishnu Bhatla, he looked at it. I looked at it in the sources of information, and he came up with something which I thought I'll quickly go over because the time is almost there. It'll take me about 2-3 minutes. Truth about belly fat. That's what and this was the reference given, as you see here. And this is the latest for this year, so there's a little more update. That's what we are talking about. And belly, and this is sort of normal. Fiction of fat, whole grain food. Does it help to reduce your belly fat? Any comments?
No. It increases.
It increases?
Yes.
Okay. This statement may be true in some places. Now, what is the significance behind? I just want to tell you. Whatever you eat, you must reduce your total calories. That's the bottom line. If you eat too much, whether you eat grain or no grain, makes no difference. You have to reduce the total number of calories, and of that, grain could be part of it. That's what the message is here, and I have to read it. This is a study published in the Clinical Nutrition. Calorie-controlled diet, rich in food grain, whole grain, helped. But you have to reduce the total number of calories. This is the fundamental of this slide. Sit-ups, exercise, does it reduce belly fat? Yes or no?
No.
Yes.
It doesn't do anything. You can do any many sit-ups, it doesn't do anything. It will stretch, tighten your abdominal muscles, but it won't take the fat away. You must follow one special diet to reduce belly fat. Yes or no?
No.
I think we answered this in the first one. You have to reduce your total calorie intake. And we already talked about over the last 4 years, when we talk about diet, what are the refined sugars, carbohydrates, that's what it means. You have to do high intensity workout to reduce or burn belly fat. Can you imagine what I'm going to show you? It's very so simple. We don't even realize how important it is, at least in this study. Even walking, I'm talking about even walking, helps reducing your abdominal fat. That was the message. There are 2 studies here. You don't have to do vigorous exercise. From Louisiana, there is a study, 2.5 hours per week. 2.5 hours per week. So it's about 30 kind of minutes per day. It shrank belly fat by 1 inch in 1 month. How simple that is. If you can do it, same study, another study came, and you can see it. 45 women, obese, 30 to 55 minutes, 3 times a week, the fat was down by 20%. Now, so you don't have to do a strenuous exercise. Fiction 5, which is the last one. Or maybe one more. Belly fat is more dangerous than other fats. Yes, I think we why. It is because this word visceral means organ. So this fat that you are seeing here is not only here, it is in your organs. What are the organs close by? Liver is the one very close. And there are others. So this is where we call it visceral fat. And there's no question. We have talked about here, you measure your waist to hip ratio. This subject has been discussed many times here, and it's very important. We can do it at home on a regular basis, not every day. Less dietary fat means less belly fat. Yes or no?
Fiction.
It is part of the total calorie intake is the same thing. No matter what kind of fat you eat, but the total calorie intake has to be less. So at the bottom it says very nicely, traditional methods like healthy diet and plenty of exercise, even to walking, will help. I think that these 2 points came up last time, and I thought I'll update you. And we conclude from this. We are a few minutes late. Next month.